Hey y'all, Rick Houston here, and I want to tell you about my new show, the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast. I've partnered up with the state of North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to help uncover the history behind moonshining mountain boys, professional wheelmen, and the backwoods and city lights of the Tar Heel State. In the first episode, I sat down with Winston Kelly at the NASCAR Hall of Fame for a little behind-the-scenes gossip about Junior Johnson's engineering skills.
He's got two things in his hand, pipe wrench and channel lock pliers. And they weren't new. They had been around the block a time or two.
Wasn't the first steel they built, I bet?
No, I think the pliers had been red before, but paint had worn off.
And in the second episode, I talked to a professional hillbilly, a.k.a. Dr. Daniel Pierce of UNC Asheville, to find out the real history of moonshiners and their battles with the revenuers.
He wrote about one of his experience of trying to chase down this bootlegger in this souped-up car, and he complained that the government gave him these piece of crap, cheapo cars, and that were really no match, but he thought he was doing pretty good, and then the guy just hits it and just takes off and practically disappeared. But then the guy makes a bootleg turn and comes back towards him. And as he said, it was a game of chicken, and I was the chicken. And so he ran off the road. And actually, he was the guy who caught Junior Johnson at his daddy's steel when Junior got tangled up in a barbed wire fence.
So check out the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast, available on YouTube, dailydownforce.com, and all of your favorite podcasting platforms. And be sure to check out my regular show on NASCAR history, the Scene Vault Podcast.
Eric Estep here. One of my favorite parts of being a NASCAR fan is collecting diecasts. It's how I got my start on YouTube, actually. To me, a room is not complete until it features shelves of NASCAR diecast cars. It's as good a time as ever to continue your collection or begin an all-new one by pre-ordering your favorite driver's 2022 next-gen diecast at lionelracing.com or at any authorized Lionel retailer. Lionel is the official diecast of NASCAR, and don't miss Lionel Racing's NASCAR Authentics diecasts at a Walmart or Target near you. Not only is Lionel the official diecast of NASCAR, but they're also official supporters of the Out of the Groove podcast network. So what are you waiting for? Head to lionelracing.com to order your favorite driver's 2022 diecast.
Hey, it's your host, Rick Houston, and this week's interview is with Andy Papathanassiou. Yes, that is how you pronounce it, Andy Papathanassiou. Now, he lets people call him Andy Papa for short, but that's not actually his name. We're going to go with Andy Papathanassiou. That's how you pronounce it, I promise. Andy single-handedly revolutionized work on pit road. He was responsible for athletes getting involved in the sport and in pit stops. He was the guy who came up with that concept, and he worked for Team Hendrick for years. So he's got an extraordinary story about his NASCAR career, but also with the North Carolina Motorsports Association. He was the president, and he's now on the board of advisors for that group that has been so important to the motorsports industry in North Carolina. I hope you enjoy this episode. You missed out on the ring in 92. But I believe you made up for it.
We got a few rings during our years, and that was another one of Ray's promises. He's like, we're going to get rings on every finger. And while we didn't get a championship ring for every finger, we got multiple rings for every finger, if you count all the big races and wins and championships.
So you got 4 championships with Jeff, correct? And how many with Jimmy?
I believe it's 7.
Well, I mean, while you were still there.
Well, yes. Well, I was there for all 7.
Gotcha.
That was
gotcha. Okay. All right.
As things evolve, and these were all.
I knew that Jimmy Johnson had 7 champions. Okay.
I didn't know if that was.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know if that was a trick question. 7.
So I thought that you left at the end of 06.
Oh, no.
At some point in 06.
No, I was there all the way through to 20. This North Carolina Motorsports Association, this is something I did concurrent with my role at Hendrick. No different than, and Hendrick would have people that would be on boards of like UNC and different things like that, be involved in different things. I was allowed to take time to head up the North Carolina Motorsports Association. This was an organization, a trade association for the industry that the Hendrick organization had supported, had helped create, and now there was a need for leadership, and the offer was made to me if I was interested in heading up the NCMA.
Now, tell me about the purpose of the NCMA.
Well, like any trade association, it's to promote the industry. There is a governmental component, an educational component, a commerce component, all of those sorts of things to help the industry thrive, grow, to stay in North Carolina.
I know this is an incredibly broad question, but just how important is motorsports to North Carolina?
Well, motorsports, and these were from studies done a number of years ago, but the last study that was done showed it to be a multi-billion-dollar, almost $6 billion industry a year if you count all of the races and the businesses, marketing, the engineering, all of the wind tunnels. We're the only place in the world with 3 active wind tunnels. All of these things specifically for motorsports, but then more broadly, engineering businesses as well that support the industry, tremendously important. And that specialized workforce, no different than country music in Nashville or Silicon Valley in Northern California. All of those specialized businesses, the teams themselves, all of the support organizations, the marketing organizations, the tracks, there's no guarantee that they stay right here. You can unfortunately drive just south a few miles and get into South Carolina, or you can go to Virginia or even Tennessee in some of these different regions, and there's always been an interest in trying to pull some of that away. With the legacy companies and the legacy organizations, Mr. Hendrick, Jack Roush, Joe Gibbs, all of these people that are here, that's most likely not going to happen. But as these organizations grow and we get into next generations and we get into different situations with manufacturers, there might be interest. So North Carolina needs to keep its motorsports industry strong and thriving and supported in order to keep it right here in and around Charlotte.
As the head of
this, I feel like I'm the executive director again. That's a flashback for me.
As the executive director and now on the board of directors, what does that role entail?
Well, when you move from the executive director, which is it's a position, you work for the board, and then you're on the board. As a board member, you represent, when I was on the board, I represented the interests of Hendrick Motorsports, and then we would be the ones to sign off on the events that we're doing and what we're doing with scholarships and the money, where is it going and what we're supporting. And that's the decisions of the board that is then executed by the executive director and the staff. So as the executive director, I worked for the board. Then moving from executive director to a board member, I was one of the people involved in the voting and decision-making process.
I joked a minute ago about you being a politician. I would imagine in that role you have to be a little bit of a politician.
Well, you learn a lot. I saw racing from a different side, more from the business side, and it was a very enjoyable experience. It was something that really came out of left field. I had a meeting with Bobby Rice, who was Mr. Hendrick's right-hand man at the time, and he discussed this idea. He said they were looking to shore up the NCMA, something that, again, the Hendrick organization was foundational in starting, and that my name came up in the discussions, and would I be interested? I remember he said, why don't you take some time and think about it? And I said, if you're sitting down with me now and you're representing Mr. Hendrick's thoughts, I said, I need no time at all. I'm in. Just tell me what I need to do.
Wow. Good deal. You left, you retired?
Well, my contract was up at the end of 2020. And so many times in a 28-year career with a single company, and this NCMA was another good example. The season before that, and I'm talking with my wife, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be around much longer. You just have a feeling for these things. There's zigs and zags, and we would always zig and zag together. Something would come up, something would change, something would be added, and my goals again would be in line with the company's goals, and that happened for 28 years. Then at the end of 2020, very simply, company wanted to go in a different direction. I was also, again, in that mode of, man, it's 28 years. Time is moving. Even though I feel like the new young kid, there's still these other things that I want to do. And all of that culminated. I wasn't offered another contract, and we went our separate ways with a handshake. And so how does it end after 28 years? It's about a 30-second conversation. It just ends. There is no big build up to it. I had responsibilities. I was looking towards next season. My contract was up, and it was a simple discussion. And you know it's right. Initially, it's a shock, but you know it's right when you, after the shock, you start to feel good. You start to feel good about it. You don't, 30 years, 28 with Hendrick, I can't say, wow, if I would have just made it to 30, this would have been a good run. Like, it was a good run.
Yeah.
It was a good run at 20. 28, I'm happy. And now it's funny, looking back, it almost seems like it was the right thing to happen. No different than finding my way in, finding your way out. If you're moving again in the right direction, don't ever move away from something, move towards things. And the things that were on my plate that I wanted to move towards that I really couldn't because I was at Hendrick, now that's what takes up my time.
You saying that, and I really do think that you're one of the lucky ones to have that kind of perspective, because a lot of people wouldn't.
I guess it's just I finished football. Football was great to me. Got an education, got to go to school in California, got to do all these things. Have some of the best friends still in my life today as a result of playing college football. Don't hang on past when it's over. It was over for me. And that's what opened up the door. And again, with some of my own, I didn't just wait and see what would happen. I was proactive in it. But that's what started for me in NASCAR. And my best friends, my family, they're like, NASCAR? What? Where did this come from? And I said, it literally just came out of the blue. And that started a 30-year career, and all of the things that we're talking about now, all of the successes, all of the friendships, all of the experiences. All right, well, that went for 30 years, 28 with Hendrick. And now that has ended. And again, I feel like an alumni. I don't feel like I'm on the outside. I feel like I've run my course, and now it's time for these other things. And it's racing related, it's performance related, but it's not as the director for Hendrick anymore.
What I hear you saying is, don't be sad or mad that it's over. Be happy about what's next.
And what you did.
Okay.
And what you did.
So what came next? What was it that you were looking toward?
Some of the things that I'd been doing, and what the North Carolina Motorsports Association gave me an opportunity to do, get up in front of people, to speak, to put different programs and educational activities together in my role as director.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Andy. He is one of a kind. I really enjoyed that conversation, that interview. And if you do have a chance to catch any of his speaking engagements, do so. He knows what he's talking about. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and let us know what you think about Andy.